Hey everybody, it's Jane Johnston with the BriarHillGroup at REMAX Camosun, host of He Said, She Said, They Said, a real discussion on real estate in Victoria. I'm here with...
Hi everybody, it's Andrew Plank with LePage.
How's it going?
It's going great. I'm out camping for a few days with one of my kids. So we're up near Nanaimo at the Living Forest campsite. Coming to you live from Living Forest.
How's it going there?
So far so good. We rolled in last night, went for a nice walk and explored the area a bit. Beautiful campsite. First time here. It's going well.
Good. I was up at Shawnigan on the weekend. It's very hot up there.
Yeah.
Seems more extreme temperature. So we actually went swimming, and I went for a swim last night, even like around 7. It's great.
Oh, so you just got back last night then from Shawnigan?
I was just there for basically 24 hours. Yeah.
Nice. Okay. Good.
Yeah.
You'll have to have us up sometime.
I will. I'll let you know.
Okay.
Okay. Meanwhile, actually, let's just talk about needs and wants. Do you have anything on the coming up on the market or anything you need?
Well, I have a lot of needs, as do we all. Oh, about
real estate.
Real estate. Yeah. Mainly, your standard single family home with suite. Looking for some folks who are downsizing as well into condo, but larger condo, like James Bay area, condo or townhouse, James Bay, or somewhere not in the downtown core, but in a village or near a village, bikeable, up to 1.1, I would say.
Yeah.
Still really desperately looking for something. This has been the unicorn, is to try to find a townhouse complex, and they exist. We looked at one last week that allows RVs or has parking for RVs. And we looked at one on Interurban last week, but it was the parking lot was already full, so there was no room for their RV.
Okay. Wedgwood Estates in Arbutus, they allow RVs.
Yeah, price point on that one might be a little above these guys' range, but that is good. I've heard that one before. 2829
Arbutus.
Yeah, great little complex, beautifully manicured. Some nice views from some of the units, but no, probably because those are going to be. I actually haven't watched what the prices are at right now, but they've got to be above 1.2, 1.4, I don't know.
Well, the other thing you could go to is Cobble Hill, and they have Arbutus Ridge.
Yeah, and trust me, we've been through it all. There are some up in North Saanich, and or maybe a new development that hasn't yet put in a no RVs bylaw. Might be where we go. Anyway, those are some of the things we're looking for. What have you got on the go?
I've got a new listing coming up in Souk. It's 3 bedrooms plus a bonus room. It's going to be priced $765. It's around 3,000 square feet. It's on a large lot. It's backing right onto the back of the park in Broom Hill. And it's a older home, so you get more space and more land, and it's well maintained.
It's a what home?
Pardon?
You said it's a something home, so you get more space and more land?
Older, not brand new.
Okay, gotcha.
And I'm looking with the buyer right now for 2 to 3 bedroom townhome or half duplex up to $1 million. And what else am I looking for? Or single family home. I'm working with lots of buyers right now. We're looking for, actually have another client up to $700,000 looking for a townhome, 3 bedroom plus.
Yeah, I've got a similar townhome requirement, but a little lower price point, unfortunately. But they don't mind being sort of in the downtown core, older but updated unit or Vic West. But it's a family, 2 adults, 1 child. They like their bikes. So there's that. And then also for anybody listening, I really could use a very rural property that has parking for like 5 cars. We've got, sometimes you work with people and the requirement isn't a house for them, but it's a house for their toys. So this person has a collection of vehicles, and so we need a home for cars, and also living space for a number of different family units because it's mixed generational family that wants to move. So
I
that's
find
going
a
to be
lot
an
of
interesting
people.
one, but price point's probably up to 2 million or more.
Oh,
So there is some room on that one.
North Saanich is your place.
Yeah, or I mean, we were up on Shawnigan the other day.
So if anybody's wondering, this is what a conversation with the realtor is like.
Yeah. Sorry, we've just evolved into chatting business. Yes.
Okay.
So we're talking today about house components, or what kind of the big things you kind of are going to be considering when you're buying a home, and the things you might want to watch for in terms of the systems.
Yeah. Okay. But first, let's do the stats.
Yes.
Yay. Do you want me to read them off? Can you read them on your phone?
I would have to get in pretty close, and then I think I need my reading glasses because I'm now over 50. So you go ahead.
Okay. New listings 200 and pending 192. So we've had a little bump in the market. I definitely felt it.
Yeah.
Price decreases 42, which is good.
Yep.
And price
One
increase.
of my listings was one of those.
Okay.
Yeah.
And price increase was 5.
Yes.
Back on market 2.
So it's interesting because, we've been saying, I realized this today, we've been saying, the listings versus the pendings. If we see more listings than pendings, we can generally tell that we've got that the inventory is going to be increasing over time. And you're nodding your head. But the one thing we aren't really including in that is the fact that there are properties that expire and get withdrawn. So when we add those to the pendings, we actually have more properties coming off market than our listing, because the inventory taken up with the pendings plus the expireds plus the withdrawns is more than the new listings. So our inventory is not going up based on this particular stat. It has been because that gap was a little wider, but as Jane mentioned, there's been a bump in the market. But when we're watching these things, we should probably keep that in mind.
Also, the expired can be a new listing.
Yeah, so that can confuse matters and be a little harder to quantify for sure. Good point. Okay,
net unconditional sales so far 621 for this month. That's July 2021 compared to 979 last year for July. New listing 794. It is half of what it was last year at 1480.
Yeah.
And active listings total right now are 1384. So you're right. And total listings last year for the month of July, active listings was 2,653. So we are low.
We are really low. Yeah. And it's not just Victoria. I mean, Jane and I are both I know you, Jane, you're also on a number of realtor networking groups, and some of which are more than just the Victoria area, where we hear the scuttlebutt or the chatter, and low inventory across the board, Canada and US in many, many, many areas.
Yeah. And just so people always ask me how the market's doing, and I just want to stress that it really is dependent on what you're looking for, what area you're looking at, what specific, you can even have a sub-market within a market. So for instance, when the market's cooling down, it's going to cool down in Greater Victoria from the outside in and from the top down. Right now, I'm seeing, my theory is that the condo market, which was depressed last year, started to pick up in December. I think it's going to be really busy over the next few months because people cannot find any rentals for university, and so they're buying condos.
We were calling for an increase in the condo market last year. The gap was we'd seen it widening. And with COVID, I think a lot of people were looking for more traditional housing and moving out of the downtown core and the condos and stuff. But there will be a coming back, and the gap still hasn't completely closed. So 100% definitely agree with you, Jane. The condo market still has some room to go up.
Yeah. So that's going to be the next hot market. So if you're interested in getting in, get in now, I think.
Yeah. And,
okay.
And what Jane, sorry, Jane, but I want to say too, because you referred to, and I wanted to get my 2 cents in, because is that you said, there's individual markets in every corner. And if you're looking for the cookie cutter home that everyone's looking for, that's going to be a little harder to sort of game that system, I guess. But if you're looking for a specific type of home, let's say a certain size condo in a specific area, what you may find that they're going quickly over and over again, but the market for that might be that all the other buyers eventually buy, or there's inventory in other areas that people are looking at, and that particular building, that particular style that you're looking for, there could be a gap where nobody else is looking for that, and you get to come in and buy the one property that has listed. So don't give up. There's micro markets all the time, and things that, the number of buyers for any particular product waxes and wanes.
You're right. And so specifically, I'm thinking if you're looking for condos in Saanich East, hot times for that market are in April or May, or when university gets out usually. And then again in August when people are buying for the next year. So every time I have a listing coming up around there, house or condo, that's the timing I'm looking at. And so then if you want to get a deal, you might want to look just slightly off that market to look at other times.
Yep. Patience,
grasshopper. I've said that so much this year. Okay. Let's talk about just the components. Well, first of all, when you are looking at a house with a client, we are not home inspectors. We are only realtors, but we attend, I would say, 500 plus. I've attended over 500 home inspections. So I'm
career. Yeah. And it's interesting how things change over time too. The things that people notice, or the things that inspectors are drawing attention to. I mean, there's a lot of consistency, but sometimes there's new things that come up over time or become new on the radar. But yeah, we've sat through a lot of building inspections. We are aware. Obviously, we help people buy and sell homes. So although we can't speak to specifics, we can certainly say, in general, these are the kinds of things we see, and these are the kind of areas you really, really want to pay attention to.
Right. So just starting from the top, the first thing is the roof. I always look at the roof and see if there's any curling, or I can't see the granulation, but sometimes you'll see dark spots on roofs, which means that the granulation has gone away. You're kind of almost getting a burning happening on the roof, or there isn't adequate ventilation underneath. So I also, when I go to neighborhoods, I look at roofs to determine who has money, because a roof is often something it's a big ticket item and people don't spend the money.
When you say looking at who has money, you're not like going, oh, the people in this house have money and these people in this house don't. You're saying, in general, in a neighborhood, if you look on average at the roofs, you can generally get a sense of whether people are caring for their homes and staying on top of things. And if they have not discretionary income, but the adequate income to actually take care of this asset that they own. And if you find that a number of homes are not being well cared for, the roof might be a good indicator of that. Yeah. I mean, I use that same thing when people are buying condos, because when you buy a condo, you're buying a shared ownership in all the common property in that condo. And so you have the benefit of all of those common properties, but you also have the responsibility for them. And so, look at the parking lot and the parkade, and look at the cars in that parkade. And look at, all of the different common areas and how they're cared for, and at the building itself, and you're going to get a sense of the spectrum of ownership in that building. And is it going to be looking like people can both afford to or have the drive to maintain? And it's hard to make, blanket generalizations, but it does give you some clues or hints.
I look in the building, I look at the balconies,
Yeah.
and they're kind of wrapping around the building. So for instance, I had a client who, where only half the balconies were done. And when we looked at it statistically, the condos were a good purchase price for them because they could get in. And we had to factor in the fact that they're going to have to do the remaining half balconies. But the building did something interesting, is they did the balconies on the back side of the building. So the front looked terrible.
Oh, no.
But so that gives you a good idea, because the balconies are kind of a weak point in a condo, I think, that and the underground parking. Yeah. So when I'm looking at the parkade, I'm looking to see if there's any efflorescence or cracks where water's coming through.
Yeah. And again, it could be that that's there and yet it's already been addressed, or it's seeing these things. We are not engineers, and even a building inspector is not an engineer. So when we see these things, we can draw attention to them, but we can't really say specifically what the future holds in terms of whether there's a requirement to fix or not, and so on. So it can be a little difficult, but at least drawing attention to things. But when the thing, I guess, when you're looking at a home, and the sort of the overarching point of this conversation, even, or around like buying a home and using a building inspector, is, take into account the whole cost of this home, whether it's a condo or a house. What's the whole cost of owning this home? And if there's a lot of deferred maintenance, you might be finding a home that's in your affordable range, but is it going to end up costing you more than another home would have cost you if it had been, if you paid a little bit more for a home that was actually well maintained, upkept, maybe perhaps newer, or again, older and completely, it had all the components redone.
Right. And this staging is a way of making a home look well maintained.
So you want to sometimes look between the, staging. Don't get caught up in all of the shiny stuff. Sometimes you want to look under the hood and kick those tires and see how this place, make sure the fenders aren't falling off, to mix all kinds of metaphors.
It always kills me when people say, "What's my condo worth?" without me seeing it. I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have to open up the hood to look at the engine.
Yeah.
But things like, so for instance, probably the most important thing when you go to a house is, does your key work in the lock? That's the first thing that people are going to be looking at, like whether or not I can actually turn the key in the lock. So
one of the key pieces of advice that obviously not, it's not a key piece of advice, but it's the experience that people have from the moment they drive up to your curb, is how do they flow into your home? What do they see? What do they experience from every moment? And if their first impressions right off the bat are, a bunch of mess in the driveway or leaves everywhere, where they see, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to be raking all the time. There's moss on the roof. They get to the door, and then the realtor is fiddling with the lock and can't actually get into the home very easily. These all create friction. And
right, and people are responding to it without knowing that they're responding to it. It's like the temperature of the house. So, okay, a few things. First of all, cut your grass so it's all uniform, because those little odd pieces sticking out show up. Make sure your front entrance looks nice. Your key works. When you're going into the house, often I'm looking at the ceiling. I'm looking to see cracks in the ceilings, and so you want to make sure anything. In an older home, it's common to have cracks in the ceiling because of the homemade trusses flex.
Yeah. And you referred
So
to temperature, and one of the things I see in vacant homes, you walk into a vacant home, especially in winter, and everyone is being respectful and taking off their shoes and coming into this home, and then they're freezing, and their experience is all like, I can't stay warm, and the home feels cold and unwelcoming and not friendly, and it could be a beautiful home, but turn on your heat, and even have the lights on for the agent when they arrive, if it's just a little bit of extra um, hydro bill, but don't make the agent run around and try to find all the light switches, especially if they're sometimes a little hard to manage. People can just walk in and flow into your home and experience it and be comfortable uh, with the heat at a comfortable setting and everything well lit, and up the amps of your the wattage of your bulbs, even, so that light fills the corners and the place feels bright. These are all great ways to help someone experience. And we're way off topic, Jane, but this is always helpful, and we just sort of, I know we free flow in this.
well, it's interesting because I did a market analysis on a condo that's coming up in a few weeks. It's rentable. Anyway, I showed the condo before when it was for sale, and I said, I remember when I walked in how dark your hallway is. So you know what? If you change the switch to just being a light sensor,
Yeah.
so that when somebody walks in, the light turns on. I said that will just change the whole way your condo is perceived from the very first step in.
Yeah.
And the seller's like, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
So,
Because if
and
you
then
have to open the door, get in, it's dark, and walk across the hall to go turn the light on, then you're experiencing that dimness and darkness for those first few seconds of your entry, and that's no good.
okay, so roof. So eaves troughs are something as well, I think, that people need to focus on. So I went to a house the other day. The eaves trough in the front was cleaned out. The one in the back looked like it needed a serious haircut. It had like weeds coming out this
Yeah.
deep, and it was just because they'd had a contractor in to clean the eaves troughs and they hadn't been done. But what happens is the water comes down the roof and then it goes back up underneath the shingles. We had it happen in our house once. So maintaining those, just getting the little weeds out of your eaves trough can make a big difference. And then perimeter drains is something that people don't pay attention to, but they need to be cleaned out every 5 years.
Yeah, get them roto-rooted and cleaned out, because the roots do grow into them and it starts to clog the system. And depending on your perimeter drain system, they're very complex, and obviously they're underground. You can't see what's there necessarily. An older house may just have some clay tile. It may not have anything. It could be all collapsed. You could have something called Big O, which was more from the 80s, and it was sort of a corrugated plastic, which was easily destroyed by the roto-rooter kind of stuff. Or you could have the newer plastic stuff, and it could be in a single stage or two stages, where it's one set is your downspouts for draining the water down, and the other set is for your groundwater to disperse groundwater. Or you could have a single set where it's just all going into one set of pipes. And again, hiring a building inspector won't necessarily tell you those answers. You might want to hire a specific
Roto-rooter guy.
perimeter drain expert for this. And if you don't, then you may not know what you're getting. And, we sometimes see, newer looking white pipes coming out of a home, and it's usually an indication that something's been done, but it's not a guarantee. People do sometimes just put those pipes in place, or they may have just replaced a section, but not the whole thing.
Yes.
So you're noticing a theme here for those listening. Jane's been talking about roof and downspouts. Now we're talking perimeter drains. It's water. Water is the theme. And when you think about your home, there's sort of from the top down, you're thinking water. From the bottom up, you're thinking structure and foundation. And those are the two, kind of major pieces that you want to consider. And then the rest, the plumbing and the electrical and, asbestosis and all those things, those are, what's going on inside. But, weather is a big piece. And,
well, it's funny you say that, because when people come from the Ontario and they're looking at the roof and they're like, it's 5 years old, they're thinking the roof is going, that's it. But here, right, the roof lasts longer, but they suffer from mold and growth of green stuff, whatever it is, on the roof. Whereas in Ontario, the cold takes care of that, but the snow is much harder on the roof itself and pulls the granules off. And I think, I'm not sure if we mentioned last week, but it came up this week in a conversation. Do not get anybody to pressure wash your roof, because
I showed a home in Brentwood Bay, and clients wrote an offer, and we got a building inspector, and he was showing us these photos of this roof that somebody had been up there, and that seller had hired, this was an elderly seller, and unfortunately they had hired somebody to clean the moss off the roof just before listing. And that seller had this person had come in and pressure washed their roof, and that person had pressure washed the granules. There were trails on this roof, and just like, they had destroyed that roof. It had been a good roof, and then somebody had gone up there to try and beautify it. And so you want to hire the right people if you're going to do this. Moss on the roof isn't necessarily a problem. We live in the West Coast. There are trees around. Organic matter collects on the roofs. Moss grows on the organic matter. It's not going to do a lot of damage if it's a little bit of moss over time. It makes it look a lot better if you hire somebody to remove it. Just make sure you do the right people. Get the right people to do it, because you do not want to pressure wash that roof.
I had a client shovel a flat roof, shoveled all the granules off, and you could tell where he did it. And anyway, he blamed the roofer, but I'm pretty sure the roofer didn't make the problem.
This is a completely side story, but we all do stupid things. And I remember going skiing one time, and I had this snowboard, and my car was covered in snow by the time when I came back. So I tried to clean my car off with the snowboard, forgetting that it has a metal edge. Edge of the snowboard. So I scratched the heck out of my hood. We've lost Jane. Anyway, we all do stupid things, but try not to. Come back to us, Jane. Come back to us.
Okay.
You can't tell because it's covered in snow, right? So it's not until you kind of...
You can do those things, but never admit them.
Say what? No, don't admit them.
Those things, but don't ever admit them.
I know.
Okay.
I'm not afraid to admit these things. I'm just not. We all do these things. It's part of life.
Okay.
And I was a teenager or early 20s at the time, so I giggled. Okay, moving on.
Basement. So the other thing is, on basements is looking actually where, like when you're looking at the house and water and stuff, is looking where the house is in relation to the land. So I was just showing a house in North Saanich, beautiful area. I love it. And it was right at the bottom of a hill. And even though it's been dry this summer, the basement felt wet. And so looking at where your house is in relation to hills and seeing if there's a perimeter drain or a curtain drain or something around the house as well, really, really important. And so you can look and see if you don't have a slab. If you actually have a basement, you can actually look and see if you have efflorescence around the inside of the foundation. Yeah. So these are things that we look for.
Efflorescence is like a white salty material that as water comes through the concrete and then evaporates on the inside, leaves these white salts. So when you see that, it's usually evidence that moisture has been coming through in some way, somehow. Jane, too, like if you're in the backyard of a home and you see a lot of moss, or there's a bit of a dip and you're in a low area amongst other homes, you're probably the home itself might be set up above and probably on a slab and will never have problems with water, but your backyard might become a marshy a marshy swamp every spring or fall and winter. So you want to kind of consider like and think about all the seasons when you're buying a home, and where is the sun going to be travel, how is this home oriented, and how much warmth does it get in order to dry itself out? Is it surrounded by trees in the woods, or is it really exposed to all of the elements? And both can be problematic.
I had a listing on Newton where the backyard flooded every winter. And so we disclosed that. There was a drain right in the middle. So, I mean, anybody could have seen it, but we disclosed the fact that, and we had a picture of the backyard so you could see it was like a big pond. But anyway, the water table is just high up there. Okay,
Right.
Let's talk windows. So, I had a home inspection last week, and Russell Cass from Home Check came, and we were talking about roof, like where are we going to spend the money? So the roof was going, and the windows were all original single pane. And what he was saying was because they were single pane and there was not opening, they were not likely to leak or be drafty. There was going to be convection happening on them. But where to spend the money in the meantime was on the roof. So I thought that was interesting because a lot of people look at windows, they all go, "Oh, are they double pane?" But the roof was he was saying the better investment.
Yeah, I mean, windows visually look good to people. I mean, when I walk through a home, it's nice to see newer vinyl windows, and all things being equal, it speaks to somebody having spent some money to update their home. But it's not as necessary as a roof. The windows are probably not going to leak, as you said. The thermal value of putting in new windows will increase, but it's for the savings that you're going to get out of your hydro is not going to be significant enough versus the cost of what happens if you have a leak in your roof. And then what if it's a small leak that's just getting into your attic and causing mold? And these things happen over time, and it's kind of unseen. You're way better off spending your money on that roof.
Yep.
So, and one thing too, Jane, like one thing about roofs, and I've talked to remediation experts about these things too, like you make a change to one component in a housing system, it can actually affect other components. So you want to kind of consider how the whole system works. Sometimes an old roof with drafty rafters and all that may have good airflow, but you bring in a brand new roof and good venting even in it, but there's some other component that's kind of missing, or they've tried to save some money in some other area, and it can cause problems that weren't anticipated. So just make sure you do it right, and you consider all of the components in your home when you make an upgrade.
Yep. So actually this happened often with those cedar shake roofs in Oak Bay and in Broadmead. And so those naturally breathe. And when people have changed those roofs out and put in the fiberglass shingle, they often haven't put in enough ventilation. And so you get the mold buildup. And then I was going to say the mold buildup can happen anywhere in your house, inside the house, if there's not adequate ventilation. So previously, cupboards used to have louvered doors on them to allow air to circulate. But if you have a cold wall and you have your wedding dress or whatever in a plastic bag and it's right against that wall, you can get mold there. So very important to allow some ventilation into your closets. That's often why you see those circular things, because houses now have become so airtight. The modern houses, you need that circular vent to have the air coming in. So really, I'm like a big fan now of the louvered doors, and also on in linen closets, even having slats instead of solid shelving, so the air flows. Like we've gone away from some really good ideas over time.
Yeah, these things were there for a reason, and we don't always think about it. And we think, oh, for design aesthetic, I want to change this up and have something that's a cleaner look, or I don't want these slats. And then you end up with more problems. So I think, you referred to those Oak Bay homes or Broadmead or what have you, where they've replaced the roofs. It's sometimes, you get your brother-in-law to come over, or you know, you just, well, we can do this ourselves. We know what we're doing. It's not, rocket science replacing a roof. And yet there hasn't been consideration for the bigger picture stuff. And so sometimes you can cost yourself more by saving yourself, trying to save money. And the
Yeah.
same goes with hiring real estate agents, of course. I can sell this house myself. You don't know what you don't know. So hiring someone who has been through this down this road many times before and knows the path well can help guide you in decisions that are going to save you time, save you money, make you more money, and avoid all kinds of problems. So these are things to consider when you're looking at spending your hard-earned money is, do I really, really know this? Have I been down this path before? Am I going to do better by hiring someone? And so
I
whether
tried
it's a
to
new roof.
I
Yeah,
tried to sell my own car, and I was like, yeah, I sell real estate. I could sell my own car, whatever.
yeah,
Anyway, I ended up paying for the GST on the car because I forgot $1,500. It's like so dumb. Okay,
right.
so regarding ventilation as well and moisture is bathroom fans. So in 1970s, homes often had the fans above the toilet and not in the highest part of the bathroom. So understanding how your bathroom works, we often see mold. And every time I go in with an inspector now, they're like, after you take a shower, shut the door, leave the fan on, and then making sure, like for at least 30 to 60 minutes, and then making sure that it's venting. So previously they used to allow it just to vent into the
Yeah,
attic space, and
yeah,
now it has to go out.
yeah. So if you have a vent in your bathroom and you don't know for sure that it's venting in, out of the home itself, it could be venting into your attic. And if you're having long showers, really steamy showers, and it's just all going up into your attic, then you're causing yourself some problems in your attic. Um, so knowing and it's not a hard upgrade to, you know, to do it right. But you can also get, and it's, again, relatively inexpensive versus the cost of mold remediation. Um, you can get a little timer for your fan so that it goes on daily for a period of time. It's modern code now that actually is in all new homes. So why not retrofit your older home to help get some of the humidity and moisture out? You can have a humidity sensor that it just kicks in when the humidity gets to a certain point and automatically will, take it out of the home.
The other thing is the type of insulation you have in your house. So previously, there's been several types of insulation. So one was a paper-based product that used to capture the water and then release it. And then now they've gone to the pink, which is like what's it called?
Fiberglass.
Fiberglass insulation. But previous to that, they had vermiculite, which was a rock, which was actually fire retardant, and then mixed in with that was asbestos. And so just looking at an attic and seeing what's in the attic often can be instructive to the whole system of the house. And sometimes people have just put the new fiberglass on top of the old. So
Right.
understanding
Yeah.
the mitigation, how we're going to deal with that too.
Yeah. And, let's speak about asbestos for a bit, because, I mean, this may be an unpopular opinion, but in many homes, well, it's considered to have, any home under, older than 1990 is considered to have asbestos. And I work with a lot of people who, the minute they hear the A word, they want to run and say, no, I don't want to buy this house. There could be asbestos on the tape around the ductwork. There could be asbestos in the insulation. Um, all of these things are there because at the time asbestos seemed like a good idea, and it was, and it still is, in terms of performing its function as being a fire retardant. But where it's dangerous is if it's disturbed and the fibers get into the air, and it can get into your lungs and cause cancer and problems. But if it's not disturbed, and there are remediation and mitigation options, um, you know, it doesn't have to be the end of the world for a home purchase. It just needs to be an awareness piece. This is what's happening, and this is the risk, and this is what it costs to remediate. This is the effect of leaving it behind.
And so asbestos can also be found in things like, so in this house that I was doing a home inspection on last week, it was in all of the linoleum and the tiles around the floors. And so for those, what we recommend is that you don't disturb them and you just go over them with a new flooring. Because they actually will protect your house from fire. They're going to slow it down.
Yeah, and it's in the drywall mud on older homes. And one of the real things you have to consider is if you are planning a renovation now or in the future, you're going to need to get your different components tested for asbestos content. And then if there is asbestos content, then there's certain procedures you have to follow, which will increase your costs of that renovation. And of course, if there's vermiculite in your attic and you plan to put in pot lights, if it's in the attic and you're never going to go up there and it's not disturbed, it's fine. But the minute you want to do some wiring up there or put in some pot lights, now you're looking at a lot of additional cost, or, just have it all removed by a proper company.
So often people are focused on the aesthetics of a home. Do you talk about those when you go in, like the kitchen cabinets and all of that stuff? Yeah,
I mean, I try to give people a general overview perspective of let's start with the big pieces, location, floor plan, how's the flow of this home? Because if we have good location and floor plan and the general condition of the home is good, then the cosmetics are something you can deal with over time. But I try to note when people get too caught up in seeing the shiny objects of, oh my gosh, this is an updated kitchen and this is great. And I say, yeah, but they spent all this money, but it doesn't have the kitchen triangle, which is a design feature. The fridge is over in that corner and the stove is over in that corner. The fridge door opens the wrong way, which isn't a big deal. You can fix that, but that's my pet peeve. But this wasn't a well-designed kitchen. It may look good, but it's a galley kitchen. That home we saw, the other home we saw had a nice big open kitchen, and I know you love to cook, and there's room to develop it, and there's a walk-in closet and all of these things. It works well. This home, doesn't have flow and is not well designed, but it's all updated. Which would you rather have? What do you do? What's your perspective on that?
Well, first of all, I think people tend to, I don't know if this is the right word, denigrate the old cabinets from the 70s and earlier that are solid wood with those exterior hinges. And those I find are really fabulously built. Like even now, they still open and close, and usually without any problems. I look at those just to sort of say, okay, this is something, here's some design ideas for making this more modern without a lot of cost.
Yeah.
Often I don't recommend, if the kitchen's working, I don't recommend replacing things like cabinets and stuff like that. People can do that. I find often they say they want to do it and then it's the last thing they do. But I do find I talk a lot about flow as well. Like when you're coming into the house, like where are you going to hang your coat? Where are you going to put your boots? How are you going to enter into the home? Where do you normally, where will you be hanging out? It really is looking at the lifestyle of the person who's buying the home. So for instance, I was looking with these two guys, we were looking for condos or townhouses that allowed 2 dogs. And so we ended up on Luxton. And so there were maybe like 6 or 8 townhouses available. And so I'm looking at the light and I'm going, well, here, if you buy this particular one, you're going to have a view of the park and you're going to have the long view between those buildings. But if you buy one this way, you're not going to have either of that. So they're like, that's, an interesting perspective of how you're going to live in the home. And then also looking for, I talk to a lot of people, it's kind of sensitive, but whether or not they're going to have kids
Yeah.
and like how they're going to plan. I mean, you save a lot of money buying the right house off the bat.
Yeah. Yeah. I find that people are, they talk sometimes about finding a forever home, which you have to be careful about. I think you should look for your 5 to 10 year home and think about what changes could happen in your life and try to build something into that. But if you're trying to find something that fits a forever everything, that's gonna be problematic, I guess, to find something that fits everything. But you do have to have those conversations. Hey, are you thinking about having kids? Because if so, this home could work better than that home that you saw over there, and you're going to have this flexibility. And it's, you're going to be also, closer to amenities and so on and so forth. You know, Definitely one of the things you said too is, as you walk through the home with people, you ask them to think about what would it be like to live in this home, and really, this isn't, some people do this as a sales technique. I do this as what what are you going to experience here? What's your real life daily experience of living in this home? And what are the things you love to do in the neighborhoods? Like, do you like to bike? Do you have to go through a bunch of traffic to get to the bike routes you really love? Or is this right, backing onto the Galloping Goose Trail, which you want to use every day? Is
Yeah.
Is this a condo where you have to take the elevator up to the third floor and then walk down a labyrinth of hallway before you get to your front door? And are you going to be carrying your groceries every day? Is this a house where, you're in your 60s, late 60s, let's say, and you're still very spry and active, and yet at the same time, the kitchen and all the main living spaces are it's a 3-story townhouse, and you have to carry everything up from your garage level to the top floor to get your groceries there. How is it going to be to actually walk into this house, take off your coat, and be home? At what point are you actually home?
Yeah. I think sometimes people, like, I agree, you have to look at their lifestyle. Also, sometimes people tend to, uh,
Gloss things over.
yeah, or they're like, I have one set of clients, I love them because they love every house they go into. Like, they
Yeah.
go, I love this house. And if the listing agent's there, they're like, so?
Yeah.
Are you writing an offer? I'm like,
I
they
had a
love
client
every
for
house.
years. For years, she was looking for a condo or townhouse, and she would do her own thing often and go to open houses and so forth. And I would get the call all the time from agents being like, "Oh, your client so and so came through the open house, and she loved it. She just loved it. So, you might want to get in touch with her." I'm like, "Yeah, okay, thanks." And I'd follow up and be like, "Oh yeah, no, this and that," but never, like, just
I've
loved
had
every
to these
home.
clients, the thing is with them is they're such nice people, is
Yeah,
that they're just really respectful of the house that they're in, and they appreciate what they're seeing, and they are very serious buyers. But after a while, I've learned to wait for the second set of questions to come out after they've
yeah,
digested it. But the first blush is always it is rose-colored glasses. So,
yes,
and that's actually,
yeah,
this is a very important point because
yeah.
understanding your clients, what?
Oh no, go ahead.
It's a very important point because if you understand your clients and their perspective and their lifestyle, whatever, you begin to anticipate the type of question that they're going to ask, then you can answer it as you go through the home.
That's a good point. Yeah, and we want to start seeing. Well, we want to wear the hat of being our client, and we want to see through their eyes, because what we might think is important for us, and there are things that we want to point out that I think are that should be important for everyone to consider, but there are other things that sometimes we forget. I forget to really put my client's hat. I have to remind myself, wear my client's hat, put myself in their shoes, see through their eyes, and realize that they are going to be very, very happy in this home because it really meets their needs. And I shouldn't be, um, I have to be respectful of that, even though it might not be the home that I would choose, because maybe to me, I value resale value better than a nice kitchen or something like that.
Yeah. I feel like that when somebody's looking at a mobile home. I'm like,
Yes.
they went buy a condo
Yes. Yeah.
for the
But,
same amount of money.
also not everyone shares all of their personal life circumstances and needs. And there are certain reasons why they make some of the decisions they make, which we will never, ever know. So again, just being respectful of that. And, our clients, the more you share with us, folks, the better we understand and are able to help you. And we are not mind readers, although we try. But at the same time, if you have things that are, you don't feel comfortable sharing, we'll do our best to work around that. It's just how it is.
Yep. It's like dating.
There you go. Everyone's entitled to their secrets and to their own personal world.
Yep.
At the same time, discuss your needs, and your partner won't know what you're looking for unless you let them know.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And so we are totally off topic today, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Just understand, actually, that's what happens during a viewing is sometimes things come up and you need to change your direction and discussion. But Andrew, it looks like your son is wanting to get your attention. Am I right? 2 minutes?
No.
Oh.
Where you hear there's people in the background. We're in a campground, so there's lots of stuff going on. My son's still in bed.
Oh.
But it's all good.
Okay. Okay. So last thing, just since we've been talking all about plumbing, is the type of piping. So there's, to me, 3 different types of piping. There's the copper, there's the polybutylene or poly-B piping, and then there's a PVC. And just understanding the difference of those and how they connect.
Lead piping?
And lead. Yeah,
yes.
I haven't seen. Yeah. And cast
we don't see it
iron,
much.
actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just making sure that the pipe also leading from the street to the house is modern. Often
Yes.
those go. Sometimes insurance won't insure things like poly B, even if they do have the brass fittings between them.
Yeah, there's all kind. I mean, it's interesting because the systems in the home, as we said, it can get really complex. And that poly B, I find some people make a big deal about, and some people don't. I see it in many homes. I see it in townhouses. I see it in condos. I have it in my house. It was more of a problem in areas where the water was harder. It was more of a problem in the 90s when they were first installed. But insurance companies have long memories, and they still don't. Many insurance companies still don't like it. So what you going to do? But and it can be expensive to pull it out and replace it all. And is it really necessary?
Yeah.
But it just comes into knowing what you're getting into.
And how long you're going to be in the house.
Yeah. I mean, every house will have maintenance required and things that you need to deal with over time, and things that, when Poly B went into homes, people thought it was the best. I'm sure they thought it was a great solution. Aluminum wiring in homes was a good idea back in the day because it was cheaper than copper and nobody really saw a problem. We mentioned asbestos. These are all things that seemed like a good idea at the time. And I don't know what, 20 years from now we'll be talking about from the home constructions of today that seemed like a good idea now. We seem to have it down pretty well, but there could be things that come up that suddenly make our homes, problematic.
Christina's saying, such a good conversation. A realtor's guide to adulting might be a good collaboration for he said, she said, they said.
I like it. That is great. Thank you, Christina.
I love you too.
Hey, what about me?
They're good friends. They live I met them at, they're from Pearson, but I re-met them at a wedding in oh my God, Yellowknife. So.
Oh, fun.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
That was a long time ago.
Well, yeah, A Realtor's Guide to Adulting. Okay, that's next week's
Well,
topic.
actually, it just goes to show, you have to decide what's important, what you're going to focus on, what are things that you need to keep your eye on. I find that as a realtor, really, I'm the deciding vote sometimes in a couple
Right.
on two sides. And I try not to be, but what I do is just remind people of what their priorities are right from the very beginning.
Yeah, and that's a really good point, because we often circle back to that. And that, if you've been working with someone for a number of months and sometimes years, um, typically it's, when we work with someone, sometimes it's over a weekend, and sometimes it's over a period of weeks, and sometimes months, and rarely, but sometimes years, depending on their needs and so forth. But sometimes you have to circle back and say, what are we doing here? Why are we why are we here? Why are we
Yeah.
doing this? What do you want? And we've been hammering at this nail this way for quite some time, and it's not working. So what can we do differently?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
what's important? How are we going to figure this out?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's changed?
Yeah. And often priorities change. And so what we're doing, really, what Andrew's saying, is we're guiding you through the process of change in your life so that you're less stressed. So we can help you facilitate that change easily.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you decide to buy a home or sell a home, it's because something has happened in your life that's caused a change, whether that's, death, divorce, just or new like growing family, a change in your job status, um, all kinds of reasons. But it's usually because there's something that instigated this change. People don't suddenly go, I want to upheave my whole life and move somewhere else simply because nothing has changed.
Yeah.
So knowing your intentions is one of the big conversations that I think both Jane and I tend to have with our clients when we do an initial interview. We tend to be interviewed by many people. We tend to interview them as well.
Christine Henry is saying, I'm discouraged right now. House is not selling.
Right.
Yeah, I'll have to come and see your house. I know where you live, so I'll set up an appointment. And Christina Chaknuka is saying, could be a book, honestly, so useful, especially if you don't have family background in buying, selling a house, or in handiwork, or making big life decisions and sticking to wise principles and choosing a house.
Yeah.
This is why you need a great realtor, because they will look at your house in perspective of where everything else is.
I think
Okay.
one of the things, I mean, the key takeaway about adulting is, and you don't have to have a book about it, is surround yourself with people that you know and trust who are experts in their field, and trust them and let them do their job. Um, and this, as Jane alluded to, when she tried to sell her car, we are equally guilty of this. We're not always adulting ourselves, but where I've ever tried to save money or save a buck by foregoing expert advice, it tends to cost me. And
Yeah.
adulting is really about, making mature decisions, and mature decisions are around being,
Yeah. Good,
yeah,
trustworthy
exactly.
people. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not about the transaction. It's about helping people manage their lives, unfortunately. So, and introducing them to who they need, even though they may not realize that they need that advice.
Yeah. Yeah. The other thing about adulting is listening to the advice you get and actually not just, yeah.
I'll be your auntie, Christina.
Oh my God. Love it.
Okay. All right.
Good.
So I just
Oh,
want to say what?
we're coming up on the 1 hour mark, so this has been a long one. But you were talking about buying a home and having the old, like Christina, having the old kitchen cabinets and how they're well built and so forth. I used to love garage sailing and buying used goods, and it was just sort of because I used to have a camera business. I was always treasure hunting. But one thing I came to realize really quickly, because you could go to a garage sale and you'd find a TV that was top of the line, but 10 years ago, for sale for a fraction of what it cost new. And I came to quickly realize, if you were to live 5 years in the past, let's say, and right now, if you go out and buy everything that is brand new, top of the line, your brand new iPhone and your brand new TV and your brand new computer, you're going to be spending a lot of money. And people always want the best of the best and the newest and newest. If you buy all that stuff today that's 5 years old and it all still works, you're living like royalty, but just 5 years ago. And the point is simply that, you know, we have this sense or need to have the newest of the new, and yet we can live quite well and quite comfortably, and we don't need all the new appliances and all the new kitchens. And I just dealt with electronic problems on my oven, and people were posting to the Facebook post that I did, you know, hey, my 20-year-old washing machine has worked forever versus my, you know, the brand new ones keep breaking down. Don't always have to get caught up in the shiniest objects.
Yes, and newer isn't always better. Yeah. So there are early adopters who take the risk, and I'm thinking of a Tesla, you know, buy it right off the bat, spend a lot of money, and then now the technology is more common and costs less money.
Exactly. Yeah. Anyway, good.
Okay, so interestingly, over the weekend, I did see some stats on foreign ownership and where the buyers are coming from. So I thought maybe we could discuss that next week. We are also going to be going over our stats, so they'll be in. So we'll do that.
The monthly stats.
We'll just bring everybody up to date.
I would like to have a topic in the coming weeks too about, and maybe people could chime in if they like this, but we've talked about areas in Victoria. You know, we talked about Broadmead and, you know, Dean Park or whatever we're going to talk about. But I think we should talk about vacation areas that people like on the Vancouver Island, where people kind of looking. I mean, you've got your place on Shawnigan, and where are people kind of looking for their various recreational properties?
Okay, I'm putting that in.
Good.
Of course, it is topical because Andrew is on vacation. Thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, it's fun.
Okay, everybody, have a great week. We'll see you next Monday. Don't forget to subscribe every Monday morning. He said, she said, they said, a real discussion on real estate with Andrew and myself. You can catch us on YouTube. We have all the recordings there. Or you can go to Andrew Plank's site, which is, here we go.
Is it coming up? Anyway, so yeah, you can reach me at my site, andrewplank.com, or email info@andrewplank.com. Call me 250-360-6106. And Jane, how do we reach you?
And I am editing my thing right now. You can reach me at 250-744-0775. You can email me at BriarHillGroup@gmail.com or visit my website. I have one of two. One is BriarHillGroup.com and the other is VancouverIslandTime.com, where we focus on neighborhoods. All right. Thanks for joining us today. See you next Monday at 10 a.m. Have a good week.
Sounds good.
Bye.
Bye.